Hello everyone and welcome to Talk of the Town. My name is Karen Bukes and I'm your host for this evening. It's been a while. I've missed you. I hope you missed me. Tonight we have a wonderful show. But first I'd like to say hello to our underwriters. First up is Cape Auto Body and Service right here in Plymouth. David and Kevin Gallerani. I love them both. Great place to go. Great service. And I recommend them highly. Next we have Wrestling with Computers, Wrestling with Brewster, Wrestling Brewster, Wrestling with Computers. I miss wrestling. I haven't seen him for a while, but he's been busy. Say hello to him and his family. Excuse me. One Stop Painting, Jeff Cohen. They do it all. Painting, house washing, wallpapering. Just call up Jeff. Great guy. Has a great employee staff. Then we have Quintal's Farmers Market, indoors. And that's in the industrial park, across from Walmart, that industrial park. And he's at 1 Scobie Circle. The greatest produce, fruits and vegetables and tortellinis and anything you could imagine, and all at great prices. I go there often. You can't get this at your local supermarket. That's Quintal's Farmers Market, open Saturday and Sunday, 10 to 5. I recommend them highly. They're indoors, rain or shine. Now tonight, I've been waiting for this program, and you know I don't do shows often, but one of these people, and I hopefully soon I have two guests, is a wonderful friend from many, many years, and you know him. But we're going to interview tonight the Triple M Marijuana Dispensary Facility. And tonight we have Kevin O'Reilly. He's the Chief Operating Officer, and Keith Tibbetts, Director of Processing. Can't read my own handwriting. Welcome, gentlemen, and thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us, Karen. It's great to be back again. It's great to see you and Ken and Steve and everybody.
Now, we see each other around town, but it's been a long time we haven't done a show together, a program, but this is so worthy. I went yesterday and took the tour. I waited until the last minute because I wanted it fresh. And I was so happily surprised at the facility, how wonderful it is, how clean it is, and the employees there all have degrees. And this includes the people who pick and grow and cultivate. Very impressed. But Kevin, why don't you tell us how this whole thing started?
Sure. This process for us, we started as a firm called Medical Marijuana of Massachusetts 5 years ago. In 2012, as you recall, we had a statewide referendum regarding medical marijuana, and when that passed, there was a group of doctors who got together and decided that they wanted to locate a facility here in Plymouth. So I was approached and asked if I could help find a location. So calling our wonderful town officials, I said, this is who I'm helping out, and this is what they'd like to do. What do you think? Plymouth had voted in favor of medical marijuana during that referendum. And I was told, find a spot in the industrial park that's tucked away somewhere.
Yeah.
So one Saturday off we went. And lo and behold, after driving around and looking at various places, we found the old Pixley Richards building at the end of Collins Ave, a vacant 46,000 square foot former industrial building.
Perfect.
And so off we went and the process began. And the first thing that we had to do was get a letter of either support or non-opposition from the
Right.
town. And as you know, town meeting had previously taken this issue up
Yeah.
because you were actively involved in that.
Right.
And people who come from out of town don't understand the complicated process that we have in Plymouth to get things done.
But worthy.
It's worthy. It's worth the effort.
Yeah.
And as I said when we did our grand opening 2 weeks back, the town held us to a high standard, as they should have.
They did.
And they ran us through the ringer, as they should have. But I think when we came out of it, we were all better off for it. So we went through, we put in our application, received a very high score from the state. Unfortunately, we ran into a bump in the road with the state where we had to go through, I won't go through the whole process, but we lost our license, then we got our license back. When that happened, then we moved forward with the process in Plymouth. We had received our letter of support from the town. We had to negotiate a host community agreement with the town of Plymouth. That agreement called for us, when we received our permit, our zoning permit, we had to pay $20,000. When we received our building permit, $40,000. Now we're paying $100,000 a year, which escalates at 3% a year. On top of that, we pay double the property tax for the property. This year, we just got our tax bill, which is $50,000. So, in essence, from that property, the town, from the medical side, will be receiving about $200,000 a year, escalating at 3% a year.
Right.
So we began construction. Construction took almost a year of renovating that building. We put almost $6 million into that building, and tomorrow will be Thursday. I think tomorrow will be our 7-week anniversary from opening.
I know, 7 weeks.
7 weeks.
And, you know, I was there at the process when you walked in to the selectmen and asked for that letter or that agreement. And they did. They did their due diligence and
They did.
asked you a lot of questions. And it piqued my interest because being familiar with it, I said I believed it was a worthy venture. But I also understood you had to go through a lot. And I think it took you 5 years.
It did. It took us 5 years from when we first applied to when we were finally open. In the town, as I mentioned earlier, the town was tough. They put some conditions on us that other towns didn't put. If you saw when you came up yesterday, we have a fence around our facility. We have a guardhouse.
A guardhouse.
We don't sell candy bars or soda
Gummies
pops or things that look like a Reese's peanut butter cup.
Nothing like that.
That's okay. And Keith will talk about this later, but we think there are plenty of other ways that you can ingest. You don't have to smoke medical marijuana to get your medicine.
Right. Well, doctors now give a letter to a facility such as to a doctor, who then the state mails a card, a permission.
Yeah, the process is the state is listed on their website, on the Department of Public Health website. There are a list of qualifying conditions.
Right.
And there are doctors who have applied with the state and been approved to certify that you have a qualifying condition. And what they'll do is they'll certify you, they'll give you a certificate that then you go online with the state with a PIN number and you register with the state, and then you receive your medical marijuana patient card. You can either be a patient or you can be a caregiver for a patient, because there are some patients
They can't go.
They can't go.
Right.
So you can be a registered caregiver, and those are the only people that we're allowed to sell any of our product to.
And doctors today understand the gift of marijuana because it does, and Keith will speak to this, of the things that it helps. To reiterate, I'm going to tell you how impressed I was over your facility. I don't know what I expected, but so pleasantly surprised at how well. I mean, the front desk has a gentleman sitting there who is was a in the Navy security.
Naval
Intelligence.
Retired naval officer, yeah.
Retired. The woman sitting next to him is a nurse. All your employees have degrees.
I'd say pretty much
most of them.
Yeah, the vast majority do. Right.
I don't know what I expected, but I did not expect that. I was really happy. And then I met this gentleman, and your little laboratory was fascinating. You built a lot of the equipment. And tell us a little bit about that equipment. Tell us what you do, how you came to this. You yourself, you went to MIT, engineer. Tell us, and you're the chemist. Tell us what you do.
Well, I started my interest in cannabis. I had a medical condition. I had a minor neurological condition. And I went through college in the 60s and 70s. Cannabis didn't interest me. By the way, we always say now cannabis as opposed to marijuana.
Okay, cannabis.
You know, it's the correct term.
Okay.
And so I never used cannabis. It didn't interest me. But when the state passed the medical option, I thought, and I read online is that, you know, now that the internet is, you know, #1 for information, I found that the condition I have is some people have been helped by it. And at that time, before dispensaries were open, you were allowed to grow your own, you know. And so I did that and processed it into capsules, little coconut oil capsules, because I wasn't interested in smoking.
No.
And took the capsules, and two things happened. One is I was able to reduce my medication by more than half. I have a pharmaceutical medication that I take. And the second thing is, which is just as important, I was not so anxious and worried about my condition.
Yeah.
And that concept of people who are sick being able to relax
Freed you up.
it helps you to heal, and it was a revelation for me because I had never, you know, it's not like alcohol.
No.
It's different, and so that's what got me started. And then the person one of the people who started this business, I'd known him for 20 years, and so we trusted each other, and he respected me, and so I began to use my curiosity about something new as well as my personal experience, and started to explore how to use cannabis in a way that you don't have to smoke it.
Good for you.
And now at the facility at 9 Collins, I have a laboratory where I'm able to make products for people that don't want to smoke and yet can enjoy the benefits of the
It was
plant.
fascinating, and one of those things is called Rick Simpson oil. Now tell us about Rick Simpson.
So Rick Simpson is a man who's still alive. He lives in Canada. And about 15 years or so ago, I don't know how he initially found out about it, but he had cancer. And he heard that maybe cannabis could help. And somehow he heard, you know, through the grapevine that you can take the resins, the flower buds of cannabis are sticky on the outside. And you can remove those resins and then concentrate the resins. And he basically did it with some high-grade vodka and a rice cooker and a freezer. You know, it's very simple. It's online. You know, people can do it. And what he did is remove the resins from the plant, concentrate them, and then you took it orally. Though it doesn't taste very good, but he took it orally and claims he cured himself. I'm not sure what kind of cancer he had, but claims that he cured himself.
Now I saw the machine that that does this, the one with the alcohol in it, but then the alcohol is completely washed through, isn't it?
That's right. We use ethanol, which is basically high-grade vodka, and the resins that are on the plant are dissolved by ethanol. So we wash the ethanol, we wash the plant material with ethanol, and then we filter it a couple of times to remove impurities, and then we basically have a very high-tech still. And we boil off the ethanol and recapture it and use it again, and then what's left is this very sticky, dark red oil, if you will, that people can call, people know it as cannabis oil or Rick Simpson oil, RSO. And we have sold, we've only been open for a few weeks, but we've sold quite a bit of it to people who are really sick. And I've heard stories of people who have used it. I had a visit from a wife of a man who, well, it's I don't know how involved you want me to get, but basically he had
Tell
stage
me.
4 glioma, brain cancer, and he went to Dana-Farber and had radiation for a year, and the tumor was gone. And then at his 6-month checkup after that, the tumor was back. But the doctor said, there's nothing we can do. We've tried, we gave you our best shot. So we suggest that you go to hospice and prepare yourself, for what's to come. Well, she was a very strong woman, and she went on the internet and found out about cannabis and how it might help some people, and got in contact with a physician in California who explained how cannabis can help and recommended this Rick Simpson oil type product and what might be a good dosage. And while he was in hospice, she gave him this Rick Simpson oil that she bought. And she got him a medical card and bought it at a dispensary. This was before we had opened.
Sure.
And in 7 months, his symptoms were, his function and so forth was much improved. So they wanted to have another MRI. Well, when you're in hospice, you can't have an MRI.
Oh, really?
So they decided, he felt well enough, he decided to leave hospice, have an MRI, and his tumor was essentially gone.
Wow.
And she was so moved by this experience, she wants to now try to find a way to educate other people. Because that's one of the big problems, is that people have a lot of misconceptions about cannabis.
Yes.
And even if they think, well, maybe I should try it, they don't really know what to do, what to take. I mean, there's so many different kinds, and
It can be very daunting.
Yes.
It's daunting to get your card, because you have to go to a doctor, you have to go online with the state, and then there's so many varieties of different products. When people think of cannabis, they think of rolling a joint and smoking it.
It's
And
not
that's
like that,
only
yeah.
one method. And I think we're trying to get the word out that there are other ways that you can
Well,
ingest
this
it.
will certainly get the word out, it'll help. But when you showed me that oil, it was such a rich amber color. It was beautiful. And you could see right through it. That's how pure that was. You held it up. It was in a plastic container.
in a Pyrex glass dish.
Pyrex glass dish. It was such a beautiful color and so pure looking. And
Well, one of the differences between cannabis and pharmaceuticals is that all the compounds that are in the plant when we extract the plant, there's hundreds of compounds in the plant, and they all work together for the therapeutic benefit. And that's the unique and important thing about cannabis medicine, is that it's all the things. It's called the entourage effect.
you said that,
know?
the entourage.
I mean, there are synthetic cannabis derivatives, like you can buy synthetic THC and synthetic CBD.
I would not recommend it.
And it's the same. The synthetic THC or the purified THC is very similar to what's in the plant. That's not the issue. The issue is that there are other compounds in the plant that work together. And that's something that the pharmaceutical companies don't like, but it's something that small businesses like ours can offer uniquely, you know,
I would
to
rather.
patients. You
I
know.
would rather give it to you than farmer any day.
It's much more, it's very natural,
Yeah.
and most all the products that we have are what we call whole plant,
I saw them.
where we try
yeah.
to include as much of what's, the way I process the plant tries to include as much of what's in the plant. I mean, no one knows exactly how it works, but there's lots of evidence that it does work.
Your plants were so healthy. Not that I've seen a lot of marijuana plants, but I've seen enough to know. I mean, the buds on your plants were beautiful.
Well, the system that we set up is everything.
Tell them.
Everything is very
The
controlled.
lights, the water.
the way the amount of time that we have the lights on, the amount of humidity that's in the room, the temperature in the room, the amount of CO2 in the room, the fact that we don't use any fertilizers
Right.
or pesticides.
We use no pesticides.
No, I wouldn't imagine you would.
Everything that we do is to try to be natural.
Right. And it looked it. I mean, the whole place reeked of green. It was wonderful, you know, but it's so healthy, and that impressed me.
So the one thing you probably noticed when you were there was the fragrance.
Yes.
And
Mild.
but when people go to buy cannabis at the dispensary, the one thing that if they, even if they're not going to smoke it, just sort of to explore, one thing everybody wants to do is smell it. And so at the dispensary we have these little plastic containers which you can't touch the buds,
Right.
but you can experience the fragrance.
It had a stopper on it.
Yeah, we
and
have a rubber gasket
a
on
rubber
top that we can
gasket,
pull
and
off.
he lifted it. It was, what was his name?
Dan.
Dan lifted it up, and I sampled, and darn it, you could tell the difference, and some pleased you more than others,
Yes.
and he explained the difference. I mean, I could have stayed there 2 hours just learning what that was all about, and he had sample after sample after sample displayed beautifully.
Well, the compounds that the plant makes that you smell are called terpenes.
Terpenes, yes.
And again, by us offering a whole plant medical product, you also get the terpenes, and they contribute to the medical therapy, which is sort of why your brain decides, well, this one seems appropriate for me. You know, by this, I mean, they don't all smell wonderful. Some of them smell unusual, but
Right.
that unusual fragrance somehow,
Might hit you.
and you
just,
say, you know, maybe that's what I need.
that's what you need.
But it's very subconscious, you
Yeah.
know, and that's an important part of the therapeutic potential of the plant, you know, are those compounds.
Well, Keith, you'll appreciate, I sat on a committee, it was called the Revenue Idea Task Force, and we did a lot of research. I had Colorado, somebody else had California, and helped with that and found out. The money end of it was intriguing and very fascinating. But I had to educate people that it was more than money. This is a product that really can help people. And when doctors themselves, I mean, it was for years, doctors, oh, I can't talk about that. Today they do, because they've seen the research. And from what I understand and from what I read, it helps, what is that condition?
Well, it helps many different conditions.
Many different conditions, but psychotic conditions, I know I'm not saying it right.
Well, the number one, the anxiety in American culture
Anxiety.
is on the rise, and I also should say that I was about to say that cannabis can help with anxiety, but cannabis can also cause anxiety. And the difference between helping with anxiety and causing anxiety is the dosage. And other than smoking, the products that I make in my laboratory are all dosed. There's a label on there that tells you exactly how much of what compounds are in it, and the people that sell the product
Will explain that to
will
you?
recommend, how much you should start with, and
And to that point, I think an important point, the difference between what we're doing and what is still occurring in the black market. Because if you
It's
want
mixed.
to buy black market in this town, it's there and you can. And as I said to one of our local officials, I could point you to 6 different websites right now where they'll come and deliver it to your door and you have no idea what you're getting.
You have no idea what you're getting, and it's mixed.
It's what we're required to do, and all of the registered cultivators are required to do, is we have to test everything. We test the soil, we test the water. Every time we have to test the mother plants.
And it's sent out.
It's all independent labs that
Yeah.
do the testing. When we harvest, we have to take a batch from the harvest, and we have to test that. When Keith processes something, we have to send that out for testing. So we know exactly what is in the product that you're getting, and as Keith said, it's on the label.
Yep, and the person selling, you come in, for instance, if I said I have arthritis very bad, which I've heard that it helps tremendously, the person understands that's helping you and would guide you to that type of remedy.
Right. One of the weaknesses of cannabis medicine is it's not a specific cure for a specific ailment. Because it is a plant, and there's many compounds in the plant that are contributing to the healing, you can only be pointed in a direction.
Yeah.
Try this type of cannabis with this type of delivery system, whether it be
Yeah.
a tincture under your tongue or whether it be a topical cream that has cannabis in it. Try that. Keep track of how much you take.
Sure.
Write it down, and then it's probably going to take 2 or 3 weeks to see any results. And then if you have a positive experience or no experience or a slightly negative experience, then you come back, and discuss that, and then they will suggest something that's similar or something that based on your feedback, And plus there's a lot of information online, and we have a list of what we consider credible websites. There's also a lot of misinformation online, but we have medical websites, doctors that we know.
Trust.
Yeah,
We trust.
if people are interested in learning more and they go to our website, we have an information tab where there's links to all kinds of research papers that have come out.
Does Kenny have the website?
I don't know if I gave Ken the website, but
Oh, what is it?
it's mm-ma.org, mm-ma.org.
Okay. O-R-G. And sure, but for years it's been misconstrued. Alcohol, there's just no comparison. You become angry. I'm no prude. I love martinis, okay? I probably had one about 8 weeks ago, but that's okay. But it's different, and it can make you angry. It can, hurt your liver. You get sick if you imbibe too much. This doesn't do that.
So I can tell you a story. There's a doctor in the Boston area who worked at the VA for 15 years. He was a graduate from Harvard Medical School, and he also worked at Mass General, and he worked at Brigham and Women's, and he ended up at the VA for 15 years. And he says that he saw a lot of patients who were messed up by alcohol who were messed up by prescription medications.
Absolutely.
But he realized he never saw anybody who was messed up by cannabis. And he got to thinking about that because he's of the generation where they don't consider cannabis as a therapy at all, but he decided to explore the literature, the credible literature, the literature that's published by the National Health Institute, the Institute of Health, the NIH. There are lots of papers online. And he was surprised that there is a lot of credible research. So he decided, a lot of doctors don't deal with cannabis because since the federal government supports a large percentage of the health system, you know, all hospitals get a big part of their budget, directly or indirectly, from the federal government. And the VA obviously is 100% federal government. So they can't do anything with cannabis. He decided to quit working for the traditional medical establishment and start a practice that just used cannabis to help people. And one of the things he said that I agree, he's very realistic. One of the things he said that I agree with is, in terms of cannabis does two things he says the number one complaint that people come to physicians for, all physicians, the first complaint is pain, the second complaint is sleep problems.
Yeah.
And cannabis, in terms of pain, is just as good, not better, but just as good as all the other pain medications there are.
Barbiturates,
You know, all that stuff.
But without the side
But
effects.
without the side effects. And then in terms of sleep, cannabis is in some ways better
Yeah.
than the other things that you can buy, either with prescription or without, and still no side effects.
And anxiety. When a person's sick, they're very anxious.
And we've had patients come in that I know personally that said, look, I just want to get a good night's sleep.
Yeah.
And they do,
Yeah.
without that feeling that groggy feeling that you've
Oh, yeah.
taken pills that maybe let you sleep through the night, but you're not feeling any better when you wake up in the morning.
Or constipate you. Yes, because oxycodone, those types of pills constipate you. And that's
I've seen the commercials on TV.
Yeah, it adds to the problem that the person is having.
And the unfortunate thing is, because of the way the federal government schedules this drug, they put it the same level as heroin.
Oh,
And-
that's so...
The states have taken the lead on this and said, we don't believe it. We understand
It's
that
not.
there are qualities to
Yeah.
cannabis that we need to take a look at. We haven't quite gotten there with the federal government yet. I'm not sure we will soon, but I think it's come so far down the road now, and so many states have legalized, at least medically, that hopefully we're not going to turn the clock back.
That's right. And if you are so inclined, you know, to do heroin, you do it all. And that's to me, and I could be wrong, but that's a type of personality that would do something like that.
Well, and the problem, heroin is so different. Keith could probably explain this better than I can, but you know, for some people, you may have had an injury and you get on the oxy.
Oh, you get, yes, medically, yeah.
And there's a switch that goes off on your brain.
Oh, it's terrible.
And it's not a weakness. You're not an addict. You become addicted because that switch is turned on your brain, and there's nothing you can do to turn it off.
It's very, very difficult.
But hopefully people will start looking at cannabis as a way to exit from the pharmaceuticals in these pills by reducing the amount of pain that they have, so they don't have to take as much and they don't get addicted.
Yeah. Well, you know, when I was growing up, it was alcohol. And kids would skip school and go to the local pond, and they'd bring a beer and, you know, drink, and they thought it was, you know, I knew that was dangerous, but everybody did it. And if you go back in TV shows, there was Darren and Bewitched, you know, he would come home, there's the glass of martini and the cigarette.
And the cigarette.
That's how we were raised. And it took a long time to understand, education, to understand that that stuff just shouldn't be, you know. But this helps medically, and I am...
As Keith said, he said this before, if you can't dose it, you don't view it as medicine.
Right. That's it. I mean,
that's a good
I'm not against recreational use of cannabis. It doesn't interest me personally.
Yeah, me either.
But the plant has so much medical
Benefit,
potential.
yeah.
You know, but only if you understand. I mean, there's so much information available on the internet, or you talk to other people that might have a similar condition that you have, and the products that we sell are dosed, and we recommend and it takes very little. It's amazing what a small amount of cannabis can have.
A drop.
Yeah, can have an effect on you.
Right. Now, you have something very nice to tell the audience.
Yes.
It happened recently.
Recently, we have been through the local process again, because as people know, in 2016 there was another statewide referendum regarding recreational use in the Commonwealth, and Town of Plymouth voted in favor of that. 52% of the voters supported recreational adult use of cannabis.
Cannabis.
So I think they called it marijuana in the
It's
ballot
our
question.
generation
in the
that
ballot question.
gets stuck on that word.
And I have to give the Town of Plymouth credit, because as other towns were implementing moratoriums and bans and the like, our town officials took a look at it and said, if we don't do anything, it could go anywhere in the community. But if we jump out in front of this and we can limit it and we can regulate it.
Right. Rules and regs.
And rules and regs. And town meeting took this issue up, and in October voted to allow 4 adult use recreational facilities in the 2 light industrial zones.
Right,
in
limited,
Plymouth.
yes, in areas.
To the North Plymouth Industrial Park and Camelot Park. The nuclear plant is also designated as light industrial, but I doubt we're going to see any retail outlets there anytime soon.
I thought, it would be great if that's all there was there, but we got to struggle.
Maybe someday. We'll take it one step at a time.
Yeah.
And I thought, and I said this in the press before, I thought the town took a very measured, deliberative approach to this, and they did it the right way. It's almost like we say to our patients, start low and slow, and let's see what happens and see how it works. So we applied for one of those 4 recreational licenses. We went through the process. We met with the steering committees. We went in front of the planning board. And then last week we were in front of the zoning board and received unanimous approval for our special permit.
That's a huge thing.
Yeah. So we're not quite through the process
Right.
yet. The state law requires us to have a host community agreement that, in our case, because we are already here medically, we have a host community agreement in place that we negotiated with the town manager back in 2015. So what the law requires us to go in and do is modify that agreement. There will be a town meeting article coming up a week from Saturday that would allow the town to impose a 3% fee on our sales. The difference between recreational sales and medical sales is that while you have to get your medical card, the product that you buy is not taxed. On the recreational side, there's a 20% tax.
For the state.
For the state. There's a 3% tax that goes to the local community that's hosting the facility. And then each community that hosts a retail outlet is allowed to impose up to a 3%
So
fee.
6% can
So
be.
6% can go to the town.
Mm-hmm.
20%, the 20% tax plus the 3 is charged to the consumer. We're charged the 3. You can charge up to 3%. I don't know any community that's going to say, "Oh, let's just charge 1%."
No.
So I think town meeting is approaching
We'll
it
do
the right
that.
way, doing it the right thing. Once that gets done, then we will go and work with the town manager to modify our existing agreement. When that is all done, then we will go to the state and apply for one of those
How long do you
recreational
think
licenses.
that'll take?
With the state,
Well, no, this whole process.
well, the modification of our existing agreement will be dependent on what happens at town meeting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming that the town is going to say, do the 3%, let's not cut it back to 1% or get 0%.
Mm-hmm.
And once that is done, then we'll be able to go in and modify the agreement with the town manager. So we're hoping by the end of April,
Not bad.
beginning of May, we'll be through the local process.
Then the state.
And then we'll have to go to the state process, which it could take a month to 2 months to 3 months. You're just
they're
not sure.
slow. Yeah.
But that's okay. They're going to probably have a few applicants that they have to review. So, but the way the law was written, the 22 existing dispensaries are allowed to apply first, and the state will start accepting those applications on April 15th. It'll be a few weeks before we're able to get in the door with them, but that's okay.
Well, there was rumblings that they weren't going to allow anything, and I said to myself, you know, they're going to look at what they're going to get, and they need money. You know, you can't grow it on a tree. They're going to say yes. And that was my feeling. You know, it was a lot of back and forth. They had to, though.
The state you're talking about?
The
or
state.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Well, the people voted for it.
Yeah.
And whether you agree that the ballot question was flawed or not, I think the legislature did a good job in taking it and modifying it and making sure that those things that maybe didn't quite work
Yeah.
too well, and then the Cannabis Control Commission that was formed by the referendum, I think the people on that board did a tremendous job in wading through all of this in a very short period of time.
But you know that the state, the voters have voted for things, and the state has said no.
Correct.
You know, so it was up in the air, but I felt, you know, the money was too irresistible, and I was pulling it for that and the medical end.
I started my involvement with medical cannabis about 3 years ago, and it's interesting. When I first started, there was such a stigma. I was to buy, like I told you, I started, you know, doing my experimentation with making capsules and tinctures and things, and so I had to go to a hydroponic supply store, they were just opening up then. Okay, there were just a few in the state.
Yeah.
And to get the certain equipment that I needed to grow
Were you
cannabis.
followed?
Well, I was advised not to park in front of the store. I was advised to park 3 blocks away.
Can you believe?
And then when I went in the store, I had a book about growing cannabis, and there was a recipe for fertilizer that was recommended to get a healthy plant.
Okay.
And so I went up to the clerk and I said, I showed him the book, do you sell these ingredients? And he said, you can't bring that book in here.
Oh.
It was, but now, 3 years later,
You have 3 short years.
things have changed.
Yeah.
There's so much acceptance of the potential of medical cannabis. Even I'm always struck by people in positions of authority, whether they be local officials or law enforcement people, you know, who on the outside say, well, you know, we have to be careful that the kids don't, you know, get this, which is obviously true.
Yeah.
I have teenage children. But then after they say that and everyone has gone away, it's just the 2 of us in the room, they say, I have a brother
Yeah.
who has leukemia.
Yeah.
Do you have anything maybe that he can take? You know, I get that kind of thing all the time.
People always felt good, I won't say 100%, but felt good about cannabis. They just didn't say it. Now, you can't grow up in the 60s and not know marijuana. We didn't do it. It wasn't later on in adult life, tried it once or twice, didn't like it because it was smoking. And I really didn't care for it.
And you probably didn't know what you were smoking either.
Yes, and later found out that they laced it, and I ate all the way from Cedarville to North Plymouth, and I said, I can't do this anymore. But that's why those oils and other, you have the vape.
The vape cartridges,
The
correct.
vape cartridges, they were sleek. They were beautiful.
And tinctures, and
Tinctures.
I'm pretty sure that once the recreational, or if we get the recreational license, that the same products will be available
Correct.
On the other
in
side.
recreational.
Yeah.
The non-smoking products will be available.
I hope so.
You know, to people when they won't have to go through the hassle of getting a medical card.
Yeah, I would, in addition to the tinctures and the capsules, in the Rick Simpson oils, in the vape pens,
And the topicals.
in the topicals, one of the things that the closest thing to a food product that we will have is the honey.
The honey. You have the bees.
We have, in addition to everything else that this
Yeah.
wonderful man next to me does, he also raises bees.
That's wonderful.
And we have 2 beehives.
Yes,
At
I
the
saw
facility.
them.
And honey accepts the compounds of cannabis very easily.
It does, I know.
You know, it's not
Yeah.
it's not a complicated. Basically, you just cook the
Mix it,
cannabis
yeah.
buds in with the honey and strain it, and
Yeah.
that's it. you
Yeah.
know.
And who doesn't like honey?
It doesn't get any more natural than that.
Any more natural.
I also should say that for all the non-smoking products that we sell 3 different versions. And maybe it's time to talk a little bit about THC and CBD.
Okay.
So THC is a compound in the plant that gets you intoxicated, gets you high.
That's the high.
Right, that's THC, tetrahydrocannabinol. But there's another important compound in cannabis called CBD, and that does not get you high. And that has a lot of therapeutic potential. And that's the compound in the plant that people who have serious conditions. I've made a Rick Simpson oil for this woman who has a son who is diagnosed schizophrenic.
That's the word I was looking for.
And
yeah.
and she found out somehow that a ratio of cannabis oil that has 20 parts of CBD and 1 part THC works for him, calms him down, but does not make him intoxicated at all.
Isn't that wonderful?
And so all of the products, so that ratio of 20 to 1 is something that we will sell. You know, is not intoxicating, but a little bit of the THC compound seems to work well with the CBD in many therapeutic situations. But we will offer 3 variations of our cannabis products. We have a THC product, you know, like in the honey, for example, or in tinctures or capsules. We have a THC product. We have a CBD product, you know, which is what I started out taking initially. And then we have what's called a 1-to-1, which is half THC and half CBD.
Oh, yeah, 1-to-1.
Right.
And so all 3 of those have applications for different types of conditions.
Yep.
And even small amounts of THC in terms of pain relief and inflammation, you know, can be very beneficial.
And you can mix special things.
Yeah, we
Right,
can.
like the 20-to-1,
Yeah.
which isn't a product that we typically sell.
No, yeah.
But we have the ability, because we grow and we process and we package
Yeah.
all at 9 Collins Ave in
Yeah.
that facility,
Right.
we have the ability to be able to do that because we're local.
That's right, and I love the idea of that, honey. Do we have a phone call? Photos!
Photos.
Oh, we forgot. Yes, we do have photos. Please, quickly. Oh, I forgot all about it. Well, you should have reminded me. Oh,
Would you like me to
yes,
walk you
please.
through?
Yeah,
Okay, there's our logo. That's us, Triple M.
yeah.
And I think the first shot is the outside of our building. Just very quickly, I mentioned at the start, this is the old Pixley Richards manufacturing building. It's 46,000 square feet at the end of the cul-de-sac, right next door to the beautiful studios here at PAC TV.
Right.
And right now we're using a little over half of the facility for both the grow-up cultivation operations and the dispensing operations. What we're looking at there is the patient entrance.
Yep.
This is the inside of our dispensary. We have, as people come in, you need to check in at the front desk.
Yeah.
And as we signed you in yesterday as a visitor.
Yeah.
And then we'll escort you into the waiting room. In the waiting room, we have a separate patient education room if people would like to have a private consultation to talk about their specific condition, they can do so. And then they'll come into the dispensary. And I will point out those beautiful display cabinets there were made by Keith.
Yes, he made so many things. They are
former
beautiful.
life, yeah.
A former life.
Beautiful.
This is a picture of our propagation room. And in the propagation room is where the plants begin. Those plants that you see in the picture there are called the mother plants.
Yeah.
And those were started from seed late last summer after we received our certificate to begin cultivating.
Mm-hmm.
We have over a dozen different varieties right now and just planted some new ones as well. But we don't have to grow from seeds anymore. What we'll do is take cuttings off of those mother plants and clone them. And it will take anywhere from 12 to 16 weeks from when we do the cutting until the harvest. So the next photo, I believe, is a picture. I believe that strain is White Rhino.
Is it? Look at the buds.
And we have four grow rooms that are separate. And as I mentioned before, they're all controlled with the heat, the humidity, the amount of light they get, the amount of CO2. And we have a great cultivation staff that takes care of that. When the plants are ready for harvest, they'll go into our drying room.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a picture of the plants that are drying. That can take anywhere from a week to 2 weeks for the drying and the curing. So when they go into before they go into the drying room, the large leaves will be trimmed off, and then the buds and the smaller leaves around the buds, which Keith can probably give a little explanation on the trim, the sugar trim that's on the buds and how we use that in the processing, which would be, we can go forward to the next slide. That's one of our workers preparing the plants for their drying, and I think in the next picture we have some of our staff is doing the trim, I believe.
The next picture, next photo, there.
Nope, I
No.
guess we didn't have that. And
There's-
there's Keith in his
there's
processing
Keith.
room, so I'll pass it on to Keith so
There's
he can
that
explain what
wonderful
we're doing
machine.
Well, before we leave the cultivation, I want to point out it's important that the lights that we use to grow the plants are LED lights.
Right.
And there's a lot of big grow facilities that don't use LEDs. They don't think they work well. We put a lot of research into finding an LED light that works well, and the benefits of LED lights, number one is it saves a lot of electricity.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are not
point.
contributing to global warming. We're doing it the minimal way.
And it doesn't burn the plants.
No.
Right, so the lights can get very close to the plants.
Yeah.
I read with some amusement, there was an article in the paper where some people were saying that the state was considering putting a requirement in that grow facilities must use LED lights. And there were some growers who were saying the it'll never work. You can't get a good grow out of the LED
And you've proved
lights.
them wrong. We have 5 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So let's go back to processing. Now that picture of Keith.
Keith. There he is.
So that's a picture of a piece of equipment that is basically a still. And what we do is, like I said before, we wash the plant material with ethanol to get the resins off of the plant. And then we need to separate the ethanol from the resins. And we do it in a still the way they make moonshine, except it's just the opposite. They take the corn mash and make alcohol out of it, and they throw the corn mash away.
You do.
We take the corn mash and we keep it. That's the part that we want. You know.
Yeah. Next slide, please.
So this is one of our new products that we just actually started offering this week at the request of our patients. This is a lozenge.
Right, and this is made with organic sugar and a very finite amount of cannabis extract, and so we know exactly how much cannabis is in each of those little cubes.
Yeah.
And an important way to take cannabis is through the veins that are in your mouth, under your tongue and in your cheeks. So if you suck this in your mouth like a hard candy, you will feel the effects much faster than if you chew it up and swallow it, because then it goes through your liver and takes more time. So if somebody is, let's say, needs to relieve a little bit of anxiety or has a little bit of pain, this is the type of product that would be good for them.
Is that it,
I
Kenny?
believe that's it.
Well, you brought up a good point, because my mother raised me. She said, when you're thirsty, you want water. Put it under your tongue. It's not that your stomach wants water. It's your glands. And that's how she explained that. But that's so true.
Oh, there's there was another picture of a bottle of the tincture.
The tincture.
And those are the drops. And one of the things that's important, there's our trimmers. So with the tinctures is, if you pull the dropper out, you'll see the amount.
The amounts. Yes, on the
each dropper, so you'll know exactly the dosage that you're getting there.
It was fascinating when they were cutting the...
That's those are one of our pre-rolls. We do have a machine that will roll the marijuana cigarettes for you. So there's some people like to do it.
Yeah, and
and there's our ribbon cutting.
Yes.
So the Chamber of Commerce, which I'm the former executive director of.
Yes.
Not surprisingly, the Chamber of Commerce brought their giant scissors up, and we had tremendous support. We had almost 100 people show up for the ribbon cutting. Local officials and business owners. I was just overcome by the amount of support that we had when we had our ribbon cutting a couple of weeks ago. It was wonderful to see the amount of support that we received from the community.
Grow. That will only expand the support that you get.
And I think one of the reasons we receive that support is because, back to what I talked about before, the standard that the town made us meet, and making sure that we did it right, and that we're going to continue to do it right.
And you were willing, and you always said, "Thank you very much. I will do whatever it takes."
I said I have to do it right. They all know where I live.
They all know where you live. Well, I want to thank you both for coming. Didn't this go by fast?
Yeah, it's good.
Yes, it's because he said an hour. I said, you wait and see. Thank you so much, and we'll be seeing you. We know that around town.
Absolutely.
And Kevin, it couldn't happen for a nicer guy.
Thanks, Karen. I appreciate that.
You deserve it. Very worthy. I always admire you. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I don't know when I'll see you next, but I'm sure Ken will be here with his 3 amigos or whatever. See you around town.